A single mother was hired to teach sign language to a millionaire's deaf daughter. The girl blossomed, and color returned to that house once more. And in that moment, the millionaire realized the past was asking to come back. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Stay with us. Leah Milos drove through the imposing iron gates of the mansion. Her fingers tapped nervously on the steering wheel of her second-hand Honda Civic, a stark contrast to the pristine luxury that surrounded her. Through the windshield, the mansion loomed ahead, all sharp angles, glass and stone, beautiful but somehow cold, like a perfectly crafted ice sculpture. Leah checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she'd applied just enough makeup to look professional without seeming like she was trying too hard. The bags under her eyes told another story, one of late nights helping her 10-year-old son Tullio with his science project, of early mornings picking up extra tutoring shifts, of constant calculations to make each dollar stretch until payday. She took a deep breath. This job offer had appeared like a miracle when she needed it most. Full-time American Sign Language instructor for a 6-year-old deaf girl, living quarters included, with a salary that made her eyes widen when she saw the figure. It was enough to pay off her mounting debt and begin saving for Tullio's college fund. She couldn't afford to let her nerves get the better of her. As she parked, her phone buzzed with a text from her sister, Harper. "Good luck today. Tullio's having a blast here. Don't worry about anything except making a good impression. Leah." Texted back a quick thanks. Leaving Tullio with Harper for the first few days until she got settled had been a difficult decision, but a necessary one. She knew her son felt abandoned. His father had walked out when he was just 3, claiming he wasn't cut out for family life. Since then, it had been just the two of them against the world. A tall woman in a crisp suit met Leah at the entrance. "Miss Milos, I'm Vivian Reynolds, Mr. Rollo's executive assistant. Please follow me." The interior of the mansion was even more impressive than the exterior: vaulted ceilings, modern art installations, and furniture that probably cost more than Leah's annual salary at her previous job. Yet despite its grandeur, the house felt strangely empty, as if the very air refused to circulate properly. "Mr. Rollo is in a virtual board meeting," Vivian explained as she led Leah through a labyrinth of hallways. "He'll meet with you briefly, this afternoon. For now, I'll introduce you to Emma." They stopped at a door adorned with intricate carvings of forest creatures. Vivian knocked gently before entering. The girl's room was a stark contrast to the rest of the house. While still obviously expensive, it had warmth, shelves filled with books, walls painted a soft blue, and large windows overlooking the expansive grounds. Sitting cross-legged on a window seat was a small figure, her back to the door, seemingly absorbed in watching the falling leaves outside. "Emma," Vivian called, making a visible effort to speak clearly, "your new teacher is here." The little girl didn't turn around. Vivian sighed. "She's been like this since—" She caught herself. "Well, she doesn't respond much. We've had 3 ASL instructors before you. None lasted more than a month." Leah nodded, her heart tightening. She moved slowly into Emma's line of sight and knelt to the girl's eye level. Emma Rollo had her father's striking features: dark hair, high cheekbones, and piercing blue eyes, but where Leah imagined Ethan Rollo's gaze would be calculating, Emma's was empty, turned inward like a door firmly shut. Instead of speaking or signing immediately, Leah simply sat nearby, allowing her presence to register. After a few minutes, she took out a small kaleidoscope from her bag and began looking through it, feigning fascination at the patterns. She could feel Emma's curiosity stirring beside her, a slight shift in posture, a quick glance. After another minute, Leah offered the kaleidoscope to Emma. The girl hesitated, then took it, raising it to her eye. The small smile that flickered across Emma's face was brief but unmistakable. It was the first crack in the wall. Vivian, who had been watching from the doorway, raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Well, that's more than anyone else got on their first day. I'll leave you to get acquainted. Your quarters are connected through that door." She pointed to a door on the far wall. "Dinner is at 6 in the kitchen, though Mr. Rollo rarely joins. He prefers to eat in his office. After Vivian left, Leah began unpacking the special materials she'd brought, colourful flashcards, tactile objects, and picture books designed for visual learners. She didn't push Emma to participate, simply organised her supplies and occasionally demonstrated how something worked. An hour passed this way, with Leah creating a comfortable bubble of activity around them both. Finally, she signed a simple greeting. "Hello, Emma. I'm Leah." Emma didn't respond, but she watched Leah's hands with undeniable interest. By late afternoon, Leah had settled into her adjoining quarters, a spacious suite with its own bathroom and sitting area. As she unpacked her modest wardrobe into the walk-in closet, her phone rang. It was Tullio. "Mom, when are you coming to get me?" His voice sounded small. "Hey, buddy, remember we talked about this? I'm going to bring you here in a few days once. I get everything ready for us. How's Aunt Harper treating you?" "Fine," he said unconvincingly, "but I miss you." "I miss you too, more than you know," Leah replied, fighting back tears. "I promise this will be worth it. The school here is excellent, and you'll have your own room, much bigger than our old apartment." After reassuring Tullio and hanging up, Leah sat heavily on the edge of the bed. The weight of her decision pressed down on her. Was she doing the right thing? Moving them both into a stranger's home, no matter how luxurious, felt risky, but the financial security it offered was too good to pass up. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Expecting Vivian, Leah was surprised to find Emma standing at the door connecting their rooms. The girl held the kaleidoscope in one hand and a worn teddy bear in the other. "Hello again," Leah said, signing simultaneously. Emma didn't sign back, but she entered the room and climbed onto the window seat, similar to the one in her own room. She pointed to a photograph Leah had just placed on the nightstand, a picture of Tullio at his last birthday, grinning with chocolate cake on his face. "That's my son Tullio," Leah explained, signing as she spoke. "He's 10. Emma tilted her head, studying the photo. Then, unexpectedly, she made a sign. "Friend?" Leah's heart leapt at this first communication. Yes, he could be your friend. He'll be coming to live here too in a few days." Emma's expression remained neutral, but she nodded slightly before slipping back into her own room, taking the kaleidoscope with her. Later that evening, after a quiet dinner alone in the kitchen, Leah was summoned to Ethan Rollo's office. The contrast between the warm, inviting kitchen and the stark minimalism of his workspace was jarring. Ethan Rollo stood with his back to the door, looking out over the estate through floor-to-ceiling windows. At 42, he had the confident posture of a man accustomed to power. When he turned, Leah was struck by his appearance. Handsome in a severe way, with dark hair greying at the temples and eyes the same piercing blue as his daughter's, but sharp and alert where Emma's were distant. "Ms. Milos," he said, his voice surprisingly soft, "I understand you've met Emma." "Yes, sir. We had a good first session. She's very observant." "Observant, but silent," he replied. "She hasn't spoken or signed consistently since the incident." Leah nodded, having been briefed about the tragic circumstances surrounding the loss of Emma's mother 3 years earlier. "I've had the best specialists in the country examine her," Ethan continued. "They all say the same thing. There's no physical reason she can't communicate. She simply chooses not to." "Children process trauma differently," Leah offered. "Sometimes silence feels safer." Ethan's gaze sharpened. "You have experience with traumatized children." "Some, but more importantly, I understand what it's like to feel voiceless." Leah paused. "Mr. Rollo, I should tell you that Emma made a sign today. Just one, asking if my son could be her friend." Something flashed across Ethan's face. Surprise, perhaps, or disbelief. "One sign in 3 years," he murmured, almost to himself. Then, composing himself, "Ms. Milos, I hired you because your references were impeccable, but understand this. Emma's well-being is everything to me. Everything." "I understand." "Do you?" His tone cooled. "Because the last instructor claimed to make breakthroughs too. Turned out she was more interested in writing a tell-all book about life inside the Rollo estate." "I'm here to teach Emma, nothing more," Leah assured him, trying to hide her shock at his sudden change in demeanor. Good. Ethan turned back to the window. You should know that every room in this house has security monitoring. For Emma's safety, of course. The implication was clear. She was being watched. Of course, Leah echoed, a chill running down her spine despite the room's perfect temperature. As she left the office, Leah couldn't shake the feeling that she'd entered something far more complicated than a teaching position. The mansion's oppressive silence followed her back to her room, where she found a small origami crane on her pillow, clearly left by Emma. Unfolding it carefully, Leah discovered a crude drawing inside, 2 stick figures holding hands, one small and one tall, standing before what appeared to be a piano. Strange, Leah thought. She hadn't seen a piano anywhere in the house. 2 weeks had passed since Leah and Tullio had settled into Whispering Pines estate. The transition hadn't been easy. Tullio, initially overwhelmed by the grandeur of their new living situation, now showed signs of restlessness. The vast grounds and high-tech entertainment systems had lost their novelty, and he was struggling to adjust to his new school where the other children came from wealth and privilege he couldn't comprehend. They all have gaming computers and designer clothes, Tullio complained one evening, pushing his dinner around his plate. Jason Phillips asked why my sneakers weren't the new Jordans. Leah felt a familiar pang of inadequacy. Ty, remember what we talked about? Our worth isn't measured by what we own. Dad would buy me those things, Tullio muttered, a rare mention of the man who had walked out of their lives years ago. Tullio James Milos, Leah's voice was firm but gentle. Your father chose not to be part of our lives. We're doing just fine without him. Tullio slouched in his chair. Fine for you, maybe. You get to hang out with Emma all day while I'm stuck at some snobby school where everyone thinks I'm poor. Leah sighed. The truth was, Tullio wasn't entirely wrong. Their accommodations were luxurious by their standards, but compared to his classmates' homes, they were still on a different social tier. How about this weekend we go into town and pick out some new clothes for you? Nothing outrageous, but something that makes you feel good. Tullio's eyes lit up momentarily, before narrowing with suspicion. With what money? You're always saying we have to save. Well, Mr. Rollo paid me my first salary, Leah explained. Most of it needs to go toward our debts and savings, but we can spare a little for some new things. The mention of Ethan Rollo changed the mood instantly. He's weird, Tullio declared. He watches us on those cameras. Yesterday I was playing basketball, and he just stood at his office window staring down at me. Didn't wave or anything when I saw him. Leah had noticed the same unsettling surveillance. Though she rarely encountered Ethan in person, he seemed to deliberately avoid the parts of the house where she and Emma worked. She often felt his presence through the subtle electronic eyes that monitored every room. Mr. Rollo is private, Leah answered carefully. He's been through a lot. So have we, Tullio countered with the simple wisdom of children. We don't spy on people. Before Leah could respond, a small figure appeared in the doorway of their quarters. Emma stood watching them, her teddy bear clutched to her chest. In the past 2 weeks she had begun to emerge from her shell, though progress was painstakingly slow. She now recognized about 20 signs and occasionally used 5 or 6 to communicate basic needs. Hey, Emma, Tullio said, his irritation momentarily forgotten. Despite his complaints, he had shown remarkable patience with the younger girl, often sitting with her and looking through picture books. Emma approached the table and deliberately signed, "Play." Tullio looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. "Sure," he said, signing along as Leah had taught him. "What do you want to play?" Instead of answering, Emma took his hand and led him toward the door. "Dinner first," Leah reminded them. "Then you can play for 30 minutes before bedtime." After a hurried meal, Emma led Tullio through the east wing of the mansion, an area Leah hadn't fully explored yet. Curious, Leah followed at a distance, wondering what had captured Emma's interest so completely. They arrived at a large set of double doors. Emma pushed them open to reveal a grand room with vaulted ceilings and panoramic windows that would have offered spectacular views during daylight hours. The room was clearly designed for entertaining, with sleek furniture arranged in conversational groupings, but what dominated the space was a magnificent grand piano positioned to catch natural light. The piano was covered with a heavy protective cloth, a layer of dust suggesting it hadn't been touched in years. "Whoa," Tullio whispered. "This is awesome." Emma approached the piano with reverence, her small fingers hovering over the cloth as if uncertain whether to disturb it. "I didn't know this room was here," Leah said, entering behind them. "Did your mother play, Emma?" At the mention of her mother, Emma's expression changed subtly, a flicker of something more animated crossing her features. She nodded once, then reached out and tugged the cloth, sending a small plume of dust into the air. "Foodies!" Piano beneath was exquisite, a Steinway concert grand in polished ebony. Emma climbed onto the bench and lifted the fallboard to reveal the keys. Her fingers hovered above them, not quite touching. "Do you play?" Leah asked gently. Emma shook. Her head. "My mom plays a little," Tullio offered. "She used to have an old keyboard before it broke." Emma looked at Leah expectantly. "Oh, I'm not very good," Leah demurred. "I took lessons as a child, but that was a long time ago." Emma's expression didn't change, but her eyes remained fixed on Leah with an intensity that was difficult to refuse. Finally, Leah sat beside her on the bench. "Just a simple tune, okay?" she said, placing her fingers on the keys. The first notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune filled the room, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence as muscle memory took over. Leah had always loved this piece. Its gentle melancholy matched her own temperament. She'd played it countless times on the old upright piano at her grandmother's house growing up, and later on the keyboard she'd saved for months to buy. As she played, something shifted in the atmosphere of the room. Emma sat transfixed, her body gradually relaxing, leaning slightly against Leah's side. Tullio had wandered to the windows, but even he turned back, drawn by the music. Leah was so absorbed in the piece that she didn't notice the figure standing in the doorway until she reached the final notes. Looking up, she found Ethan Rollo watching them, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Rollo," she said, startled, "I'm sorry, I should have asked before using the piano." Ethan didn't respond immediately. His gaze moved from Leah to Emma, who was now running her fingers lightly over the keys, not pressing hard enough to make sound. "No one has touched that piano in 3 years," he said finally, his voice tight. It was Claire's. Claire. The name hung in the air between them. In all the briefing materials Vivian had provided, Ethan's late wife had been referred to simply as Mrs. Rollo, or Emma's mother. Hearing her name made her suddenly real, a person, not just an absence. "She was a concert pianist," Ethan continued, his eyes still on Emma. "Before Emma was born, before—" He trailed off. "I apologize if we've disturbed something precious," Leah said softly. "We can leave it covered." "No." The word came out more forcefully than seemed intended. Ethan modulated his tone. "No, that won't be necessary. It's an instrument. It should be played." Emma had turned toward her father now, watching this exchange with unusual attentiveness. Ethan took a step into the room, then stopped, as if encountering an invisible barrier. "It's late," he said abruptly. "Emma should be preparing for bed." Emma's shoulders slumped, but she slid off the bench without protest. As she passed her, "Father?" She paused, looking up at him. For a moment, Leah thought Emma might reach for him, but instead she continued on, disappearing into the hallway. Tullio, sensing the tension, mumbled a "good night" and followed Emma out, leaving Leah alone. "With Ethan. She's making progress," Leah said, rising from the piano bench. "Slow but steady." "Yes," Ethan agreed. "Vivian has been keeping me informed." Of course, Leah thought. The assistant was reporting on her performance. She wondered what else Vivian reported. Leah's comings and goings, her conversations with Tullio, her occasional frustrated sighs when progress with Emma stalled. "Mr. Rollo," Leah ventured, "Emma might benefit from music therapy. The way she responded tonight suggests she has positive associations with music." "No." The refusal was immediate. "But, Ms. Millos, I hired you to teach my daughter to communicate, not to dredge up painful memories." "With all due respect," Leah pressed, emboldened by Emma's response to the piano. "Those memories are part of who she is. Suppressing them won't help her heal." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And you're an expert on healing now." No, but I am becoming an expert on Emma. She led us here tonight. She wanted to show Tullio the piano. That's significant. For a moment, a crack appeared in Ethan's carefully maintained facade, a flicker of vulnerability quickly masked. Claire used to play for her every night before bed, he said quietly. Even when she was pregnant, she'd play and say Emma could hear it from the womb. Then maybe that connection to music could help Emma find her voice again, Leah suggested gently. Ethan studied her for a long moment. You're not what I expected, Ms. Millos. What did you expect? Someone more intimidated by all this. He gestured vaguely at their surroundings. Someone who would follow instructions without question. If that's what you wanted, you hired the wrong person, Leah admitted. I can only do what I believe is best for Emma. A ghost of a smile touched Ethan's lips. So it seems. He turned to leave, then paused. The piano is no longer off limits, but proceed carefully, Ms. Millos. Some doors once opened can't be closed again. After he left, Leah remained by the piano, her fingers absently tracing the wood, grain. The encounter had left her unsettled. There was something in the way Ethan had looked at her, a flash of recognition almost, that made no sense. They were strangers before she'd taken this position. She would certainly remember meeting someone like Ethan Rollo. Later that night, after checking that Tullio was asleep, Leah found herself drawn back to the piano room. The house was silent, the security lights outside casting long shadows through the windows. She sat at the piano again, not playing, just thinking. A movement caught her eye, a reflection in the polished surface of the fallboard. For an instant, she thought she saw someone standing behind her, but when she turned, the room was empty. Just her imagination, fueled by the emotional intensity of the evening. As she rose to leave, something on the piano caught her attention. A small framed photograph she hadn't noticed earlier, partially hidden behind a decorative vase. It showed a beautiful woman with honey blonde hair seated at this very piano, her expression joyful and serene. Claire Rollo. But what made Leah's blood run cold was the pendant around Claire's neck, an unusual silver piece with an abstract design of interlocking circles. Leah reached up to her own neck, where beneath her blouse hung an identical pendant, a gift from her grandmother years ago. The coincidence was too strange to comprehend. With trembling fingers, Leah picked up the photograph for a closer look. What are you doing? Ethan's voice from the doorway made her jump. The photograph slipped from her grasp, the frame hitting the marble floor with a sharp crack, the glass shattering into jagged pieces. I'm so sorry, Leah gasped, kneeling to gather the broken glass. I didn't mean to. Leave it, Ethan commanded, crossing the room in swift strides. He knelt beside her, carefully lifting the photograph from amidst the shards. His fingers traced Claire's face behind the spider-webbed glass. I should have been more careful, Leah apologized. Ethan didn't seem to hear her. She wore that pendant every day, he said softly. It was a family heirloom passed down through generations. After the accident, we couldn't find it. One of the few things that wasn't recovered. Leah's hand instinctively went to her chest, feeling the outline of her own pendant beneath her blouse. Impossible, she told herself. It couldn't be the same. I should go, she said, rising shakily to her feet. Again, I'm very sorry about the picture. As she turned to leave, Ethan caught sight of the silver chain at her neck. Wait, he said, a strange note in his voice. What is that? Leah hesitated, then slowly withdrew the pendant from beneath. Her blouse. The silver gleamed in the dim light, its interlocking circles catching the moonlight from the windows. Ethan stared at it, his face draining of color. Where did you get that? He demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. It was my grandmother's, Leah explained, confused by his reaction. She gave it to me years ago before she passed. Impossible, Ethan breathed. With shaking hands, he held up the broken frame, comparing the pendant in the photograph to the one around Leah's neck. They were identical, down to the small imperfection. In one of the circles. Mr. Rollo, Leah began. Who are you? Ethan interrupted, his voice suddenly harsh. What is your connection to my family? There is no connection, Leah insisted, backing away slightly. I never met your wife. This is just a bizarre coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences, Ethan said, advancing toward her. First, Emma responds to you when she hasn't responded. To anyone in years. Then you appear playing Claire's favorite piece on her piano. Now you're wearing her missing pendant. Who are you really, Leah Milos? The accusation hung in the air between them, and for the first time since arriving at Whispering Pines estate, Leah felt truly afraid. I swear, I don't understand it either, Leah insisted, clutching the pendant protectively. The moonlight, filtering through the tall windows, cast long shadows across the piano room, turning Ethan's face into a mask of sharp angles and deep hollows. My grandmother gave me this when I was 16. She said it had been in our family for generations. Ethan's posture remained rigid, but something in his eyes shifted, confusion replacing accusation. What was your grandmother's name? Eleanor. Eleanor Simmons. The name seemed to hit Ethan like a physical blow. He took a step back, steadying himself against the piano. Eleanor Simmons, he repeated softly, from Shoreview. Now it was Leah's turn to be startled. Yes, she lived in Shoreview her whole life. How could you possibly know that? Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he crossed to a side table and poured himself 2 fingers of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. He drank it in one swift motion, then turned back to Leah. Claire's maternal grandmother was also named Eleanor, he said finally. She died before I met Claire, but there were photographs in Claire's childhood home. An elegant woman with striking grey eyes. My grandmother had grey eyes, Leah whispered. People always said they were unusual, more silver than grey. The implications hung heavy in the air between them. A shared ancestor, a family connection neither of them had known about, but that would make Leah and Claire, what, distant cousins? This is insane, Ethan said, running a hand through his hair. Claire never mentioned any relatives named Milos. My mother's maiden name was Simmons, like my grandmother. Milos is my married name, well, ex-married. Leah's mind was racing. Mr. Rollo, is it possible our families are connected somehow? Ethan, he corrected absently, still processing this information. And yes, it seems increasingly likely. Annie. Awkward silence fell between them, broken only by the soft ticking of an antique clock in the corner. Leah was acutely aware that she was alone with her employer in a dimly lit room late at night, discussing what appeared to be a mysterious family connection. The whole situation felt surreal. I should go check on Tullio, she said finally. We can discuss this more tomorrow when we're both thinking clearly. Ethan nodded, seeming relieved at the suggestion. Yes, that would be best. I'll have Vivian pull whatever family records we have. Perhaps there's something there that can explain this coincidence. As Leah turned to leave, he added, Ms. Milos, Leah, please keep this between us for now. Until we understand what it means. Of course, she agreed, though the request made her uneasy. Secrets never led anywhere good in her experience. Back in her quarters, Leah found sleep impossible. She video-called her mother, carefully framing her questions to avoid revealing too much about the situation. Mum, did Grandma Eleanor ever mention someone named Claire? Or the Rollo family? Her mother's pixelated face scrunched in thought. Not that I recall, honey. Why? It's complicated. What about her siblings? Did she have a sister? You know she was an only child, her mother reminded her. That's why. The pendant was so special to her, the only thing she had from her mother. And what about her parents, my great-grandparents? Her mother sighed. Leah, what's this about? You know we don't talk about that part of the family. Your great-grandfather abandoned them when Eleanor was just a baby. Her mother raised her alone, working as a housekeeper for wealthy families. Leah's breath caught. Do you know which families? No, dear. Eleanor never discussed it much. Those were difficult times for her mother. Her mother peered closer. At the screen. Leah, are you all right? You look pale. I'm fine, just tired, Leah assured her. One more question. Do you have any old photographs of great-grandmother? The ones from Grandma Eleanor's childhood? I might in the attic somewhere. I can look this weekend if it's important. It is, Leah said. More than I can explain right now. After ending the call, Leah sat on the edge of her bed, turning the pendant over in her hands. Could it really be possible that her family and the Richardsons were connected somehow? And if so, was it mere coincidence that had brought her here or something more deliberate? She thought of Emma, who had been so quick to form a bond with her. Was it possible the child somehow sensed a connection Leah herself hadn't known existed? The next morning dawned grey and rainy, matching Leah's mood after a nearly sleepless night. She found Emma already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed, meticulously arranging a collection of small seashells in patterns only she understood. "Good morning, sunshine," Leah signed and spoke, forcing brightness into her voice. Emma looked up, studying Leah's face with unusual intensity before signing, "Back sad?" "No, just tired," Leah assured her, touched by the girl's perceptiveness. "Should we try something different today, maybe more work with the piano?" At the mention of the piano, Emma's face lit up. She slid off the bed, barely pausing to put on slippers before heading for the door. "Breakfast first," Leah laughed, gently redirecting her. "Learning needs fuel." In the kitchen, they found Tullio already at the table, earbuds in, watching something on his tablet. He barely looked up when they entered, a sign of his lingering adjustment issues. "Morning, buddy," Leah said, gently removing one earbud. "Sleep okay?" Tullio shrugged. "I guess. What's for breakfast?" "Mrs. Palmer left quiche and fruit," Leah said, referring to the part-time cook Ethan employed, "and I think there's some of that fancy yogurt you like." As they ate, Vivian appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. "Miss Milos, Mr. Rollo would like to see you in his study after breakfast. I'll stay with Emma for her morning lessons." "Did he say what it's about?" Leah asked, though she had a pretty good idea. "No, but he's been up all night in the archives," Vivian said, a hint of curiosity in her voice. "Whatever it is, it has his complete attention. He even cancelled his board meeting." After ensuring Tullio was set for his school transport and Emma was content with Vivian, Leah made her way to Ethan's study. She found him standing at a large table covered with old photographs, letters and documents, dark circles under his eyes, betraying his sleepless night. "You found something," Leah said. It wasn't a question. Ethan nodded, gesturing to an old photograph. This was Claire's maternal grandmother, Eleanor. Leah's heart skipped as she looked at the photograph. The woman was clearly not her grandmother. This Eleanor was dark-haired and round-faced, nothing like her own grandmother's willowy frame and silver eyes. "That's not my grandmother," she said, confusion evident in her voice. "No," Ethan agreed. "But look at this one." He handed her another photograph, this one yellowed with age. It showed a young woman in a maid's uniform standing beside a grand piano in what appeared to be a formal drawing room. Though the image was faded, the woman's eyes were striking, light-colored and penetrating, much like Leah's grandmother's had been. "That's Elizabeth Carter," Ethan explained. "She was a housemaid for the Whittaker family in the 1930s. The Whittakers were Claire's great-grandparents." Leah studied the photograph. "You think this Elizabeth might be related to my grandmother?" "Look at this," Ethan said, handing her a small leather journal. "It's Helena Whittaker's diary, Claire's great-grandmother." Leah carefully opened the fragile journal, finding a passage Ethan had marked with a slip of paper. April 17th, 1934. "Elizabeth has been distracted lately. I discovered her in the music room this morning, wearing my mother's silver pendant and playing the piano beautifully. When confronted, she claimed the pendant was a family heirloom, identical to mine by mere coincidence. I'm not convinced, but her playing was so exquisite, I've decided to allow her music lessons with the children. There's something about her that reminds me of someone, though I cannot place whom." Leah's hands trembled as she read the words. "The pendant," she whispered. "Keep reading," Ethan urged. June 21st, 1934. Shocking news. Elizabeth is with child and refuses to name the father. Father insists we dismiss her, but I've arranged for her to stay with my cousin in Shoreview until the child arrives. The scandal would be too great here in Boston. Elizabeth has promised to return after, though I have my doubts. She took nothing but a small bag and my mother's pendant, which I've decided to consider payment for her musical services these past months. Shoreview, Leah breathed. Where my grandmother grew up. Elizabeth Carter had a daughter in late 1934, Ethan continued, his voice tight with emotion. A daughter named Eleanor, who grew up in Shoreview. My grandmother, Leah said, pieces falling into place, but that would mean that the Whitaker's son, Claire's great-uncle, was likely Eleanor's father, Ethan finished, making Claire and your mother second cousins. Leah sank into a nearby chair, overwhelmed. All these years, and she never knew. My grandmother never spoke about her mother's past. Claire didn't know either, Ethan said quietly. The Whitakers were ashamed of the scandal. They erased Elizabeth from their family history. But the pendant, how did Claire end up with it if my grandmother had it? Ethan shifted uncomfortably. That's where things get more complicated. Come with me. He led Leah through the mansion to a small, seldom-used library. Pulling a leather-bound album from a shelf, he set it on a table and opened it carefully. Claire volunteered at a community center in Boston while she was in college, he explained, teaching piano to underprivileged children. He turned the album pages to show a newspaper clipping. The yellowed article featured a young Claire sitting at a piano, surrounded by children. The headline read, "Whitaker heiress brings music to community youth." I don't understand, Leah said. What does this have to do with... Look in the background, Ethan said, pointing to a blurry figure at the edge of the photograph. Behind the group. Leah peered closer. Though the image was grainy, she could make out a young woman with auburn hair watching the scene from across the room. That's me, she whispered in disbelief. But how? I never met Claire. You were there, Ethan said, his voice suddenly hoarse. 15 years ago, at the Boston Community Arts Center. Claire mentioned you afterward. A young woman who watched her lessons every Tuesday but never introduced herself. She said you reminded her of someone, though she couldn't place whom. Leah's mind raced back. She had spent a summer in Boston as a teenager, staying with her aunt while her mother underwent treatment for breast cancer. Her aunt had enrolled her in free activities at the community center to keep her occupied. I remember now, Leah said slowly. I was 17. I used to watch the piano teacher because she played the same way my grandmother did. I was too shy to approach her, but I loved listening. She looked up at Ethan. That was Claire. Yes, he confirmed. And during that summer, Eleanor's pendant, your pendant, was stolen from your aunt's apartment in a break-in. Leah stared at him. How could you possibly know that? Because 6 months later, Claire found an identical pendant at an antique shop in Boston. The owner claimed it was a one-of-a-kind piece from a recent estate sale. Claire recognized it from old family photographs and bought it immediately. So my grandmother's pendant, stolen from me, somehow made its way to Claire, Leah summarized, trying to process this incredible series of connections. And then I end up here, teaching her daughter, without knowing any of this history. The question is whether it's all just an extraordinary coincidence, Ethan said, studying her face. Or something more. The implication hung between them. Was some invisible hand guiding these events? Was Emma's immediate connection to Leah somehow related to this shared history? I need to sit down, Leah said, feeling lightheaded. This is a lot to take in. When Vivian's agency sent your resume, I almost dismissed it, Ethan admitted. But something about your background caught my attention. You'd studied both music and ASL. You had experience with traumatized children. You were willing to relocate on short notice. You're saying you hired me because you sensed some connection, Leah asked. No, Ethan said. I hired you because you were qualified. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that I had no idea about our family's intersection until last night. Whatever is happening here, whatever connection Emma feels to you, it wasn't engineered, at least not by me. Leah nodded slowly, processing his words. I believe you. But what do we do with this information now? Ethan closed the album carefully. I don't know. but Emma is responding to you in ways she hasn't to anyone since Claire's passing. I'm not willing to disrupt that progress, regardless of how unusual the circumstances." "Neither am I," Leah agreed. "Emma deserves a chance to find her voice. Again, whatever our family history might be." A comfortable silence fell between them. For the first time since her arrival, Leah felt she was seeing the real Ethan Rollo. Not the cold, calculating businessman, but a grieving husband and father trying to make sense of a world that had stopped making sense years ago. "We should probably get back to work," Leah said eventually. "Emma will be wondering where I am." "Of course," Ethan agreed. "But Leah—" She paused at the library door. "Yes?" "The piano room. Use it as much as you want with Emma. Claire would have wanted that." "Thank you," she said simply, sensing the magnitude of what that permission meant to him. Later that afternoon, Leah found Emma at the piano, tentatively pressing keys with one finger, her expression concentrated. Tullio sat beside her, showing her how to play a simple 5-note pattern he'd learned years ago. "Look, Mum," Tullio called as Leah entered. "Emma's a natural." Emma beamed at the praise, her fingers moving more confidently across the keys. When she noticed Leah watching, she signed enthusiastically. "Piano good. Music in hands." "Yes, it is," Leah agreed, sitting on Emma's other side. "Music is in your hands and in your heart." Emma placed a small hand over her heart, then reached out to touch Leah's pendant, which now hung openly around her neck. "Same," she signed. "Yes," Leah said softly, wondering how much the child somehow intuited. "We're the same in many ways." For the next hour they played together, simple duets, scales, and eventually, at Emma's insistent prompting, Clair de Lune. As Leah's fingers moved across the keys, she noticed Emma watching not the keys, but the large ornate mirror positioned to reflect the pianist's hands for audiences seated to the side. In the middle of the piece, Emma suddenly froze, her eyes wide and fixed on the mirror. Leah followed her gaze but saw only their own reflections. "Emma," she asked gently, "what is it?" The girl's hands trembled as she signed, "Mum in mirror." A chill ran down Leah's spine. "You see your mum in the mirror." Emma nodded vigorously, pointing to the reflection. "There, with you." Tullio looked nervously between them. "What's she saying?" "She says she can see her mother in the mirror," Leah explained softly. Tullio squinted at the mirror. "I don't see anyone but us." "Sometimes people see what they need to see," Leah said carefully, not wanting to dismiss Emma's experience, but also not wanting to frighten Tullio, especially when music brings back strong memories. But Emma was insistent, tugging at Leah's sleeve and signing rapidly. "Look, Mum, same as you?" Leah looked again at their reflection, trying to see what Emma saw. For a split second, as the afternoon sun shifted through the windows, she thought she glimpsed something. Not another figure exactly, but a curious overlay, as if her own reflection had briefly blended with someone else's. Then it was gone, leaving only Leah, Emma, and Tullio reflected in the antique glass. "I think that's enough piano for today," Leah said, feeling unsettled. "How about we go outside for a while? The rain has stopped." As they left the piano room, Leah couldn't shake the feeling that something profound had just occurred, something beyond normal explanation. Emma had seen her mother, or thought she had, in Leah's reflection, and for a fleeting moment, Leah had sensed something, a presence, a memory. She couldn't be sure. What she did know was that the boundary between past and present, between the living and those lost, seemed suddenly more permeable than she had ever believed possible. And at the center of it all was Emma, a child emerging, from silence with eyes that perhaps saw more clearly than anyone realized. That evening, after the children were asleep, Leah returned to the piano room. The house was quiet, moonlight streaming through the windows and casting long shadows across the floor. She sat at the piano but didn't play, simply gazing at the mirror, half expecting, half hoping, to see something extraordinary again. She used to do the same thing, Ethan's voice came from the doorway. Claire would sit here for hours sometimes, just looking at her reflection in that mirror. She said it helped her think. Leah turned to find him leaning against the doorframe, tie loosened, a glass of whiskey in hand. He looked tired but more relaxed than she had ever seen him. Emma saw her today, Leah said quietly. In the mirror, or she thought she did. Ethan's expression tightened. Children have active imaginations. Is that what you think this is? Imagination. He entered the room fully, sitting in an armchair near the piano. What's the alternative? Ghosts? Reincarnation? Some cosmic connection between you and my wife because of a shared family history we didn't know about until yesterday. When he put it that way, it did sound absurd. Yet Leah couldn't dismiss what she had felt, what Emma had seen. I don't have an explanation, she admitted. But something is happening here, Ethan. Something that's helping Emma find her way back. That's what matters, he said after a long pause. Whatever it is, coincidence, fate, or something else entirely, Emma is getting better. She used 5 new signs today, according to Vivian's report. She's engaging with Tullio. She's playing the piano. She's healing, Leah agreed. One day at a time. Ethan swirled the whiskey in his glass, watching the liquid catch the moonlight. When Claire first left us, I dealt with it the only way I knew how. I retreated into work, into systems and processes I could control. I installed security cameras to watch over Emma because I couldn't bear to be fully present with her. She reminded me too much of what I'd lost. It was the most personal revelation he had shared with her, and Leah remained silent, sensing he needed to continue. I thought I was protecting her, he went on, but all I did was build walls around us both. It took you, a stranger with an inexplicable connection to our past, to show me what I was missing. We all cope the best we can, Leah said gently. Some ways are better than others, Ethan replied, with a self-deprecating smile. I've been a poor father these past 3 years. But you're trying now, Leah pointed out. That's what matters. They sat in companionable silence for a while, the moonlight shifting across the room as clouds passed overhead. Finally, Ethan stood to leave. Good night, Leah, he said, his voice warm. Good night, Ethan. As he reached the door, he turned back. Tomorrow is Saturday. I've asked Mrs. Palmer to prepare a special breakfast. I thought perhaps the 4 of us could eat together. Well, not as a family exactly, but I think that would be lovely, Leah said, saving him from his awkward explanation. Emma and Tullio will be thrilled. After he left, Leah remained at the piano, her fingers lightly touching the keys without pressing them. Something was changing in this house, in Emma, in Ethan, and perhaps in herself as well. Boundaries were shifting, wounds were healing, and possibilities were emerging that she hadn't dared imagine when she first drove through those imposing gates. She played a few notes of Claire de Lune, watching her reflection in the mirror. For a moment, just the briefest instant, she thought she saw a smile that wasn't quite her own, reflected back at her. Then it was gone, leaving only questions and the lingering sensation that whatever had brought her to Whispering Pines Estate was far from finished with its work. The autumn weeks melted into winter, and Whispering Pines Estate transformed under a blanket of snow. As the landscape changed outside, so too did the atmosphere within the mansion. Rooms that had once echoed with emptiness now resonated with life, Tullio's laughter, Emma's increasingly frequent hand movements, and the music that flowed from the piano room daily. Leah sat in the breakfast nook, cradling a mug of coffee as she watched Emma and Tullio build an elaborate snow fort through the window. The December morning light cast a golden glow over the scene, and Leah couldn't help but smile at how normal it all seemed. 2 children playing in the snow, their breath forming clouds in the crisp air. They look happy, Ethan said, joining her with his own coffee. In recent weeks, he had made a conscious effort to be more present, adjusting his work schedule to spend mornings with Emma and taking an interest in Tullio's school projects. They are happy, Leah agreed. Tullio told me yesterday that he doesn't want Christmas break to end because he'd miss Emma too much during the day. Ethan smiled, the expression now coming more naturally to him. And what about their mother? Is she happy too? The question caught Leah off guard. While their relationship had evolved from strictly professional to something closer to friendship, there was still a careful boundary between them, a necessary line that neither had crossed. "I'm content," she answered. "Honestly, this arrangement has been good for all of us. Tullio's grades have improved, Emma's making remarkable progress, and I've been able to pay off my student loans." "Just content," Ethan pressed gently. "Nothing more?" Before Leah could formulate a response, her phone buzzed with an incoming call from her sister, Harper. She excused herself, grateful for the interruption. "Harper, hi," she answered, stepping into the hallway. "Everything okay?" "Not exactly." Harper's voice was tight with concern. "Have you seen the latest issue of Boston Society?" "The Gossip magazine?" "No, why would I?" "Because you and your boss are on the cover," Harper said bluntly. "Leah, they're making all kinds of insinuations about your relationship with Ethan Rollo and your suspicious connection to his family." Leah's blood ran cold. "What? How would they know anything about that?" "I don't know, but it's not good. The headline is, 'Rollo heiress replaced by look-alike inside the strange new household at Whispering Pines.' There are photos of you and Emma at that charity concert last week, and some from the memorial gala you attended with Ethan. They've even dug up old pictures of Claire Rollo and put them side by side with yours, highlighting the eerie similarities in your appearance." "That's ridiculous," Leah protested, though her heart was racing. "I look nothing like Claire." "Well, they've found angles where there's a slight resemblance. It's sleazy journalism, but it's out there now." Harper paused. "There's more. They're questioning your qualifications and suggesting you manipulated your way into the Rollo household to get close to Ethan's fortune." "That's absurd. I have a master's degree in special education. I was thoroughly vetted before being hired." "I know that, but you need to prepare yourself. This is going to create a storm, especially with Ethan's high profile in the tech industry." As, if on cue, Leah heard Ethan's phone ringing repeatedly in the breakfast nook. She ended the call with Harper, promising to call back later, and returned to find Ethan engaged in a tense conversation with someone. "I don't care how they got the information, Miles," he was saying, his knuckles white around the phone. "I want to know what you plan to do about it. This is a gross invasion of privacy." He listened for a moment before cutting in again. "No, absolutely not. I will not dignify these allegations with a response. Just handle it." He hung up, his expression thunderous. "You've heard. My sister called," Leah confirmed. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I have no idea how they could have—" "Miles thinks it was Vivian," Ethan interrupted. "Apparently she's been shopping a tell-all to various outlets since I reduced her role last month." Leah was stunned. "Vivian, but she's been with you for years." "Which gave her access to private family records and security footage," Ethan said grimly. "She was never happy about the changes around here. Your growing role with Emma, my reduced work hours, she probably felt sidelined." "What do we do now?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "Miles, my PR manager, wants me to distance myself from the situation, suggested I send you and Tullio away for a while until things blow over." Leah felt as though she'd been struck. "And what did you tell him?" "I told him that's not an option," Ethan said firmly. "But Leah, you should know what we're up against. This story will attract attention. There will be photographers, reporters, probably social media speculation. Emma's progress could be jeopardized by the disruption." "And what about Tullio?" Leah asked, her protective instincts flaring. "He's finally adjusting, making friends. I can't uproot him again." Before Ethan could respond, the French doors burst open, and Emma rushed in, cheeks flushed from the cold, Tullio following close behind. "Hey, you two," Leah said, forcing brightness into her voice. "Ready for hot chocolate?" Emma nodded enthusiastically, but her expression changed as she looked between Leah and Ethan, sensing the tension. She made a quick series of signs. Dad angry? Mom sad? Leah's heart constricted at Emma's casual reference to her as Mom, a habit that had developed in recent weeks, one that neither Leah nor Ethan had discouraged despite its complications. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," Ethan assured her, kneeling to her level. "Just some grown-up problems to solve." Emma studied him with those penetrating blue eyes, then turned to Leah, clearly not convinced. Tullio, more attuned to adult tensions after years of watching his mother navigate difficult situations, asked, directly, "Is someone making you leave because of the weird article Grandma texted about?" "You know about that?" Leah asked, surprised. Tullio rolled his eyes with the perfect disdain of a 10-year-old. "Duh, Grandma forwarded it to me by mistake. It's stupid. You don't even look like Emma's real mom in those pictures." Emma's head snapped toward Tullio, then back to Leah, confusion evident in her expression. "It's complicated, Emma," Leah began, searching for age-appropriate words to explain the situation. But Emma was already signing rapidly. "Pictures? Mom? My mom?" Ethan intervened. "Some people took pictures of Leah and compared them to pictures of your mother, Claire. They're trying to make trouble for us." Emma processed this information, her forehead creasing in concentration. Then she signed something that made Leah's breath catch. Claire mom before, Leah mom now, same but different. The simplicity and clarity of Emma's perspective hit them all with unexpected force. In her 6-year-old wisdom, she had distilled the situation to its essence, acknowledging both her birth mother and the woman who now filled that role in her life. Ethan cleared his throat, clearly emotional. "Yes, exactly right, Em." He turned to Leah. "We're not running from this. Whatever Miles and his team recommend, we face it together. These past months have given Emma something I couldn't, a sense of family again. I won't take that away from her." For the first time, he reached out and took Leah's hand in his, a public gesture that crossed the careful line they had maintained. "If you're willing to weather this storm with us—" "We're not going anywhere," Leah assured him, giving his hand a gentle squeeze before releasing it. "But we need a plan. This will affect Tullio too." That evening, after the children were asleep, Leah and Ethan sat in his study with Miles Peterson, Ethan's public relations manager, and Sandra Ortiz, his legal counsel. The magazine with their cover story lay on the desk between them, the sensationalist headline glaring up at them. "The problem isn't just the family connection revelation," Miles explained. "It's the implication that you've recreated your household with a Claire Rollo lookalike. The public loves a scandal, especially one with vaguely supernatural undertones." "It's absurd," Ethan protested. "Anyone who knows Claire would see that Leah bears only the most superficial resemblance to her." "Perception is reality in these situations," Miles countered, "and the fact that Emma is now referring to Leah as Mom adds fuel to the fire." "What exactly are they implying?" Leah asked, struggling to maintain her composure. "That Ethan hired me because I remind him of Claire, or something more sinister?" "Both, unfortunately," Sandra said. "The article suggests either a deliberate replacement scenario or an exploitation of your distant family connection for financial gain." "That's ridiculous," Leah said, anger rising. "I didn't even know about the connection when I took this job." "Can we sue them?" Ethan asked Sandra. "We could," the lawyer replied cautiously. "But litigation would prolong the story and might not achieve what you want. The facts they've reported, your family connection, Emma's attachment to Leah, your attendance together at public events, are technically true, even if the implications are misleading." Miles leaned forward. "I'd recommend a controlled narrative. Instead, a single exclusive interview with a respected outlet where you address the coincidence directly, explain Emma's progress with Leah, and position this as a positive story about healing and family." "Absolutely not," Ethan said firmly. "I'm not parading Emma's trauma or our private lives for public consumption." Then we issue a brief statement acknowledging the distant family connection as an interesting coincidence, emphasize that Leah was hired for her professional qualifications, and make it clear that legal action will be taken against any outlet that publishes unfounded allegations, Sandra suggested. "Then you lay low for a while." "Define lay low," Leah said warily. "No public appearances together?" Limited social media presence, perhaps a temporary professional rearrangement, Miles elaborated. Maybe Leah works remotely for a few weeks while remaining on payroll. That's not happening, Ethan said flatly. Emma needs consistency. We're not disrupting her progress because of tabloid gossip. The discussion continued in circles, with no clear resolution by the time Miles and Sandra left shortly before midnight. Leah remained in Ethan's study, staring into the dying embers in the fireplace. "I'm so sorry you've been dragged into this," Ethan said, pouring them both a glass of wine. "Your privacy invaded, your reputation questioned. It's the last thing you deserved after everything you've done for Emma. For us." "I knew what I was getting into," Leah replied, accepting the glass. "Well, not this exactly, but I knew your family had a public profile. I just never thought I'd be part of the story. You've become an essential part of our lives," Ethan said quietly, "more than I ever anticipated when I hired you." The admission hung in the air between them, laden with unspoken implications. Over the months, their relationship had evolved, beyond employer and employee, beyond even friendship, into something neither had been willing to name until now. "Ethan," Leah began, unsure what she intended to say. A small sound from the doorway interrupted them. Emma stood there in her pajamas, clutching her teddy bear, tears streaming down her face. "Emma, sweetheart, what's wrong?" Leah asked, immediately going to her. Instead of signing, Emma reached for Leah's tablet on the side table, opening the Notes app where they sometimes practiced written language. With painstaking care, she typed, "Don't go." "I'm not going anywhere," Leah assured her, drawing the child into her arms. Emma shook her head frantically, typing again, "They want to take you away because of me." "No, that's not true at all," Ethan said, joining them and kneeling to Emma's eye level. "No one is taking Leah away. Why would you think that?" Emma hesitated, then typed, "Heard you and angry man talking. Said Leah is pretending to be Mom." Leah and Ethan exchanged alarmed glances. Emma must have awakened earlier and overheard part of the conversation with Miles. "Emma, look at me," Leah said gently. "No one thinks I'm pretending to be your mom, Claire. You had a wonderful mother who loved you very much, and nothing will ever change that. I care about you too, in my own way, and I'm here to help you and your dad." Emma's lower lip trembled as she typed again, "But I called you Mom. Did I do wrong?" "No, sweetheart," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "You didn't do anything wrong. Families come in all different forms. Some children are lucky enough to have more than one person who loves them like a mother." "That's right," Leah agreed, brushing tears from Emma's cheeks. "And no one is going to take me away because of some silly magazine article. I promise." Emma studied their faces carefully, then did something that shocked them both. In a voice rusty from disuse, barely above a whisper, she said aloud, "Promise." The single-spoken word, Emma's first in 3 years, hung in the air like a miracle. "Emma," Ethan breathed, tears forming in his eyes. "You spoke." Emma nodded solemnly, then whispered again, each word clearly an effort. "Need you. Both." The simple declaration broke something open in Leah's heart, a dam of emotion she had carefully controlled for months. Tears flowed freely as she embraced Emma, feeling Ethan's arms encircle them both. "We're here," Leah assured her. "We're not going anywhere." After Emma finally fell asleep between them on the study sofa, Ethan gently carried her back to her room. When he returned, his expression was transformed, determination replacing uncertainty. "That settles it," he said. "We're not hiding, we're not apologizing, and we're certainly not separating our family because of public opinion." "Our family," Leah repeated softly, testing the words. "Yes," Ethan said, taking her hands in his, "if that's what you want too." "I do," Leah admitted. "But what about the publicity, the assumptions people will make?" "Let them assume," Ethan said with newfound confidence. "The truth is stranger and more beautiful than anything they could fabricate. We'll issue one statement, acknowledging our distant family connection as an interesting coincidence. Explain that you were hired for your professional qualifications, and confirm that we've developed a personal relationship in the process. After that, we live our lives on our terms." "What about Tullio?" Leah asked. "This affects him too." "Tullio is part of this family now," Ethan said simply. "Whatever form it takes." The next morning, they gathered the children for a family meeting. Tullio, always perceptive, spoke first. "Are you guys getting married or something?" he asked bluntly. Leah choked on her coffee. "Tullio, no, that's not... We're not..." "We're discussing our future," Ethan cut in smoothly. "All of us, together." Emma, who had been silent since her momentous words the night before, suddenly signed, "Family now?" "Yes," Leah confirmed, finding strength in the certainty she saw in Emma's eyes. "We're a family now, in our own unique way. And families stick. Together. Especially when things get challenging." "Is this about that stupid magazine?" Tullio asked. "Because I already told my friends at school that it's all lies." "Partly," Ethan acknowledged. "Some people might say unkind things about us in the coming weeks. They might take pictures when we're out together or write stories that aren't true. We wanted you both to be prepared." "So what? My dad said worse stuff about Mum when he left," Tullio said with the brutal honesty of children. "We survived that." Leah winced at the reminder of her ex-husband's cruelty, but she couldn't deny the resilience her son had developed as a result. "Yes, we did," she agreed. "And we'll get through this too." Emma tapped the table to get everyone's attention, then carefully formed a complete sentence in sign language. "I will speak more, tell truth, my family now." The promise of her voice, however limited, was a powerful statement of her commitment to their unconventional family unit. As winter deepened, so did the bonds between them. The media storm came as predicted. Photographers at the gates, speculative articles, social media debates about the ethics of their arrangement. Ethan's board of directors expressed concerns about the publicity affecting stock prices. Distant relatives emerged from the woodwork, some offering support, others questioning Ethan's judgment. Through it all, they remained steadfast. Emma began speech therapy, using her voice sparingly, but with increasing confidence. Tullio defended his new family fiercely at school, earning both respect and occasional detention for his passionate outbursts. Leah's role evolved from employee to partner in the fullest sense, sharing the responsibilities and joys of raising two children with Ethan. By spring, the public fascination had largely subsided, replaced by newer scandals involving politicians and pop stars. Life at Whispering Pines settled into a new normal, one marked by piano lessons, family dinners, homework battles, and quiet evenings by the fire. On a mild April evening, exactly 1 year after Leah had first driven through the gates of Whispering Pines, a special celebration was planned. Mrs. Palmer had prepared a feast, and the piano room had been decorated with spring flowers. The occasion, Emma's first public piano recital, a small affair with just family and a few close friends. As Leah helped Emma into her new blue dress, the child suddenly spoke, something she now did in private with her family, though she still preferred signing in public. "Was she good at piano?" Emma asked, her voice soft but clear. Leah didn't need to ask who she was. "Your mother was brilliant," she replied honestly. "Much better than I am. She could make that piano sing like it was part of her." Emma considered this, her small fingers tracing the embroidery on her dress. "Do you think she's happy that I play now?" The question caught Leah off guard, its depth beyond Emma's years. "I believe she's very happy," she said carefully. "Music was something she loved deeply, and now it's something you love too. That kind of connection transcends everything else." Emma nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Sometimes I feel her," she confessed, "when we play together. Like she's helping." "My fingers." Instead of dismissing this as imagination, Leah simply nodded. "Love doesn't disappear," she said. "It changes form, finds new ways to express itself. Maybe that's what you're feeling." "Like the pendant," Emma said, reaching out to touch the silver circles that still hung around Leah's neck. "It found its way back." "Yes," Leah agreed, marveling at the child's intuitive understanding. Exactly like that. As they made their final preparations, Leah heard the sounds of guests arriving downstairs: Harper and her husband, Leah's mother, a few of Ethan's more supportive colleagues, and Emma's speech therapist. Tullio darted into the room looking uncomfortable but handsome in a blue blazer that matched Emma's dress. "Dad says it's almost time," he reported. "Are you guys ready?" Emma took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready?" she said aloud, the word clear and deliberate. They descended the grand staircase together, Emma between Leah and Tullio, her small hands gripping theirs tightly. At the bottom, Ethan waited, his expression softening as he watched them approach. "My 3 favorite people," he said, kissing Leah lightly and ruffling Tullio's hair. To Emma he offered a formal bow. "The guests await your performance, Ms. Rollo." Emma giggled, some of her nervousness dissipating. The small gathering moved to the piano room, now transformed with flowers and soft lighting. As Emma took her place at the piano, Leah felt Ethan's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining with the ease of long familiarity. Emma began to play, a simple piece she had practiced diligently for weeks. Her small fingers moved confidently across the keys, her expression one of total concentration. As the melody filled the room, Leah caught a glimpse of their reflection in the ornate mirror. Emma at the piano, Leah and Ethan standing close together, Tullio leaning against Leah's side. For a fleeting moment, Leah thought she saw something else in that reflection, a shimmer of presence beside Emma, a gentle guiding hand that wasn't physically there. But the impression vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving only their family reflected in the polished glass. When Emma finished her piece, the small audience erupted in enthusiastic applause. She stood and took a bow, her smile radiant, with pride and joy. As she returned to her seat, she whispered to Leah, "Did you see in the mirror?" "I did," Leah confirmed softly. "She's very proud of you." Later that night, after the guests had departed and the children were asleep, Leah and Ethan stood on the terrace, gazing up at the stars that dotted the spring sky. "Do you ever wonder," Ethan asked, his arm around her waist, "what would have happened if you hadn't answered that job posting? If all these connections had remained hidden?" "Sometimes," Leah admitted. "But then I remember something my grandmother used to say, what's meant to find you will find you one way or another." "Like Claire's pendant finding its way back to this house," Ethan mused, "or you finding us when we needed you most." Or, Emma finding her voice again, Leah added, "Some things are beyond explanation. Not everything needs to be explained," Ethan said, turning to face her. "Some things just need to be lived, experienced, cherished." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I had planned a more elaborate moment for this, but somehow, right now, feels perfect." Leah's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a delicate ring with interlocking circles, an echo of the pendant's design. "Our story began with the most unlikely connections," Ethan said, his voice filled with emotion. "Family histories that converged in ways no one could have predicted. A little girl who somehow knew what we all needed before we did. I don't want to question the miracle of finding you, Leah. I just want to make sure we never lose each other again." "Are you proposing?" Leah asked, her heart racing. "I'm asking if you'll make official what Emma declared months ago, that we're a family, that this house is your home, not because I employ you, but because we belong together. You, me, Emma, and Tullio." Tears welled in Leah's eyes as she took in the significance of what he was offering, not just marriage, but a complete acceptance of the unconventional family they had become. "Yes," she said simply, "we belong together." As Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, a gentle breeze stirred the garden, carrying the scent of new blossoms. Inside the house, the faint sound of the piano drifted through an open window, a few random notes as if touched by a passing hand. Leah and Ethan exchanged a glance, both hearing it but neither needing to comment. Some presence, whether memory, love, or something beyond understanding, had blessed their union in its own way. In the morning they would tell the children. There would be planning and adjustments, perhaps even another round of media interest when news of their engagement, broke, but for now, in this perfect moment, they simply embraced the peace that had finally settled over Whispering Pines estate, a house that had transformed from a silent mansion of grief to a home resonating with life, laughter, and love. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn day much like the one when Leah had first driven through the gates, they were married in a small ceremony on the estate grounds. Emma, continuing her remarkable progress, played a simple piece for the processional. Tullio, proud in his role as ring-bearer, conducted himself with surprising dignity for an 11-year-old. As Leah and Ethan exchanged vows beneath an arch of autumn flowers, Emma suddenly slipped from the piano bench and approached them, tugging on Ethan's sleeve. When he bent down, she whispered something in his ear that made his eyes widen. "Emma wants to say something," he announced to the gathered guests. The little girl stepped forward, took a deep breath, and in a clear voice that carried across the garden said, "Today we all have the same last name. Now we're really a family forever." Tears and laughter greeted her pronouncement, followed by enthusiastic applause as Ethan lifted his daughter into a joyful embrace. Leah and Tullio joined them, the four of them holding each other close as cameras captured the moment. No longer intrusive paparazzi, but cherished wedding photographers documenting the beginning of their official journey together. Later, during the reception, Leah found herself momentarily alone by the piano in the beautifully decorated music room. She ran her fingers lightly over the keys, thinking of all that had transpired since that first nervous day when she'd driven up the long driveway, uncertain of what awaited her. "Playing something for us?" Ethan asked, appearing in the doorway, with 2 champagne flutes. "Just remembering," Leah replied, accepting the glass he offered. "It's been quite a journey." "And just beginning," he reminded her, raising his glass in a toast. "To unexpected connections." "To healing," Leah added. "To family," came Emma's voice, as she and Tullio joined them, each carrying a slice of wedding cake. "To family," they all echoed, their glasses and forks meeting in a joyful clink. As twilight descended over Whispering Pines estate, the sounds of celebration continued, music and laughter, conversation and dancing. The house that had once stood silent in its grief now pulsed with the rhythm of new beginnings, its walls embracing the unconventional family that had found each other through the most extraordinary circumstances. And if sometimes, in quiet moments, they glimpsed something unexplainable in the old mirror by the piano, a flicker of presence, a shimmer of blessing, they accepted it as part of their unique story. A reminder that love, in all its forms, finds ways to bridge the gaps between past and present, between loss and renewal, between silence and song. As night fell completely, stars appeared above the estate, reflected in the still waters of the ornamental pond. Inside, the family gathered on the terrace, arms around each other, gazing up at the vast, twinkling expanse. "Make a wish," Tullio suggested, pointing to a shooting star. They closed their eyes, each with their own silent prayer of gratitude for what had been found, what had been built, what had been reclaimed from silence and sorrow. And somewhere, perhaps only in the whisper of the breeze through autumn leaves, perhaps only in the space between heartbeats, another presence wished alongside them, not in grief or longing, but in peaceful benediction, for voices once lost had been reclaimed, not in the same form, but in harmonies more complex and beautiful than anyone could have imagined. And in that intricate music of redemption, there was room for all the notes of their extraordinary journey, past, present, and the promising future that stretched before them like a melody waiting to be played. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Leah, Ethan, Emma, and Tullio has touched your heart. For more emotional journeys like this one, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it by clicking the link to your left. If you enjoyed this tale of unexpected connections and healing, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring unique stories that explore life's complexities and the power of love to transform even the